the day the rules changed forever. Imagine the dawn of June 6th, 1944. The air over Normandy is thick with smoke, salt spray, and fear. Tens of thousands of guys, their eyes hazy from exhaustion, are storming a stretch of coastline that will be forever known as Bloody Omaha, Juneau Gold. The roar of exploding shells is deafening. Bullets whistle like a furious swarm of bees. But the real terror isn't on the beach. The real terror is waiting inland, in the green labyrinths of the Norman hedgerows, the bocage. The Allies had breached the Atlantic Wall, but that was just the first outer barrier. The true hell began after, and that hell had a name: Panther and Tiger. Now, fast forward just a few weeks. A small village with an almost unpronounceable name, Normandy. Silence, cut by the rumble of tank engines. From behind a hill, steel monsters with black crosses on their sides emerge. It's a dozen Panthers from the legendary 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitler Youth. These aren't just tanks, they're the aristocracy of war. Their frontal armor is a nearly impenetrable shield. Their long gun barrels are lances of death. They're young, fanatical, and confident in their invincibility. Facing them are 9 Canadian Shermans, the American workhorses. Reliable, mass-produced, but they were known as Ronsons, light a match, and they'd go up in flames. The Germans almost yawn. Another easy target. But in this Canadian group, there's one tank that's different. It looks the same, but it's not. Its gun barrel. It's impossibly long. It's like a rapier among broadswords. Range, 1,000 yards. The Germans aren't even in a hurry. Their shells should be punching right through the Shermans. And then, that long barrel spews fire. Not just a shot, but a furious, deafening roar. One time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 shots. 5 German Panthers turning into infernal funeral pyres. A matter of seconds, and the battle is turned upside down. The game was changed forever. That day, in that field, the myth of the invincible German big cats was shattered by a single tank. Its name was the Sherman Firefly. Sounds romantic, right? But why Firefly? And why was its appearance such a shock? To understand that, we need to look deeper. Much deeper. The death trap, myth, and the bitter truth of statistics. Let's be real. What do you picture when you hear Sherman versus Tiger? A scene from Fury, where German monsters methodically tear apart American steel. Our collective consciousness, fed by Hollywood blockbusters and war memes, has made us believe the Sherman was little more than a moving target. To kill one Tiger, the Allies had to pay with 5, even 10 of their own crews. What if I told you that's a dangerous oversimplification? A lie that has overshadowed the real heroism of thousands of soldiers? Let's look at the numbers. It's boring, but it's the only way to get to the truth. Take the cold, hard data from the Normandy campaign. Loss analysis paints a stunning picture. For every single Tiger knocked out, the Allies lost an average of 1.7 Shermans. Not 5, not 10, less than 2. For every Panther, the Germans paid an even higher price, 3.6 destroyed Shermans. See? The numbers tell a completely different story. The Sherman wasn't a death trap. It was the workhorse of the war. It was reliable, technologically sound. It could be produced by the thousands and easily repaired in the field. Its 75mm gun was great against infantry, pillboxes, and trucks. But yes, against the frontal armor of a Tiger or a Panther at medium to long range, it was almost useless. The problem wasn't the tank itself. The problem was tactics and specialization. The Allies weren't facing regular tanks. They were facing specialized tank destroyers. And it was here, at this point of desperation, that a brilliant answer was born. Not from the conveyor belt of a giant factory, but from the minds of a few obsessed men who looked at the problem from a different angle. The birth of an idea. Desperation is the mother of invention. Every great story has its heroes, and the Firefly story has several. Forget about steel and guns for a minute. Let's talk about the people. Major George Bridie, an officer who saw the war without the polish. He understood that tactics were fine, but when your shells bounce off the enemy's armor like peas, no tactics in the world will save you. Lieutenant Colonel George Wytheridge. This is the key figure. His personal drama became the fuel for the project. Picture this. North Africa, Tobruk. His Grant tank is destroyed. He survives by a miracle, watching his tank's shells helplessly ricochet off the German Afrika Korps tanks. A fierce, almost fanatical desire is born in his mind. More power. We need a gun that can reach those sons of bitches. And they had a gun. A magnificent, fearsome gun. One of the best anti-tank guns of the war. The British QF 17-pounder, 76.2 millimeters. A gun whose recoil made the earth shake. But there was one problem. It was a towed gun. And in war, a stationary anti-tank gun is an easy target for artillery and infantry. And then a crazy, on-the-face-of-it idea was born. What if we cram this massive gun into the turret of Sherman? Imagine the skeptics' reaction. It's impossible, they yelled. The Sherman's turret is too cramped. The recoil will rip it apart like a tin can. The crew won't have room to move. But desperation is the best motivator. When your soldiers' lives are on the line, the word impossible stops existing. The Wizard of Vickers. Genius is in the details. And now enters the man who can be called the true wizard. An engineer from the Vickers Company, WGB Kilbourne. His task was to make the impossible possible. Problem number 1, recoil length. After firing, the gun barrel recoils backward. The 17-pounder had a monstrous recoil, more than 40 inches. There simply wasn't space for that in the Sherman's turret. The first thought was simple. Let's rigidly mount the barrel, eliminate the recoil system. A ludicrous, suicidal idea. The recoil of that power would either tear the turret apart at the seams or turn the crew inside into pulp. Imagine being locked in an iron barrel and someone hitting it with a sledgehammer. That's exactly how it would have worked. So Kilbourne used some engineering genius. He didn't fight the recoil. He tricked it, rotating the breech. The massive gun breech, which usually moves vertically, he rotated 90 degrees, so it moved horizontally along the left wall of the turret. This saved precious inches. Double recoil system. He installed not one, but 2 recoil brakes to tame the energy of the shot and shorten the recoil length just enough to fit inside the turret. The radio's new home. The Sherman standard radio was in the hull. It was moved to a special armored box on the outside, on the sponson. To install it, they had to cut a new hatch in the rear of the turret. This very hatch became one of the Firefly's visual trademarks. A sacrifice for power. The Sherman's crew was 5 men. In the Firefly, they got rid of the assistant driver/bow gunner. The commander took over his duties. The freed up space was used for ammunition for the new gun. And these rounds were huge. Each shell weighed almost 17 pounds. Imagine the loader in a cramped, smoky, scorching hot turret in the heat of battle, having to haul these logs. This wasn't just a modification. It was a heart transplant surgery. The old, dependable, but weak heart of the Sherman was cut out and replaced with the heart of a predator. Economic briefing. War is factories, not just fighting. Let's step away from the battlefield for a second and step into the factories. War is always a competition of economies. The Third Reich bet on wonder weapons, complex, expensive, labor-intensive machines. The Tiger was a masterpiece of engineering, but its manufacture took a phenomenal number of man-hours, rare materials, and money. Now, look at the Firefly. The genius of this project is its cost-effectiveness. It used the serial-produced M4 Sherman as a base. Its production was already automated in the U.S. Thousands of tanks had already been shipped to Britain via Lend-Lease. The conversion took about 700 man-hours. A lot? Yes. But compared to designing and building a new tank from scratch, it was pennies. The process was localized. The refitting was done at British factories like Royal Ordnance and Vickers, as well as in field workshops. This meant there was no need to rebuild giant production lines. What does this mean in numbers? The cost of one Tiger is estimated at over 250,000 Reichsmarks, equivalent to about $800,000 today. The cost of Sherman was around $55,000, plus the cost of conversion to a Firefly. The Allies could make and convert 15 Shermans for the price of one Tiger. The Germans were building a Rolls-Royce. The Allies were building a Ford. But this Ford got a Ferrari engine. And in a long, grinding war, the side with more Fords wins. The strategy of mass-quality weaponry versus elite, bespoke weaponry worked flawlessly. The steel Firefly in battle. The hunter becomes the hunted. So our Firefly is ready. But how did it perform? Let's go back to Normandy. With the first shots of the Firefly, German tankers were in shock. Their impenetrable frontal armor suddenly wasn't. The 17-pounder gun from a range of 1,000 yards could penetrate 140 millimeters of armor with a standard armor-piercing shell, a BCBC, and with a subcaliber discarding sabot round, APDS, which was essentially a tungsten core inside a light shell. That number reached 170 to 180 millimeters. The Panther's front, 80 to 85 millimeters, punched right through. The Tiger's turret, 100 millimeters? No problem. The Tiger's front hull, 100 to 120 millimeters sloped? Now, even that was no guarantee of safety. The Germans caught on fast. They learned to identify the Firefly at a glance by that sinister, ovally long barrel. From a distance, and it instantly became target number one. The order in German tank units was simple and brutal. Kill the long one first. The Firefly crews found themselves in a paradoxical situation. Their tank was the most powerful on the battlefield, but that also made it the most dangerous place in the entire brigade. The life expectancy of a Firefly commander was one of the shortest on the front. So what did the Allies do? They got clever. A legendary camouflage system was born. The lower, protruding part of the barrel was painted white or a light color, mimicking the short barrel of the standard 75mm gun. The upper part, visible from above or the side, was painted dark. From a distance, this created the illusion of a short barrel. A simple, brilliant trick. And why Firefly? Simple. At night, you couldn't hide it. When it fired, the gun produced a blinding muzzle flash up to 50 feet long. It was both beautiful and terrifying. The crews were even given an official instruction. At the moment of firing, close your eyes to avoid being blinded for a few critical seconds. Imagine, you're in the dark, you've just fired, and you're temporarily blind. And all around you is an enemy who now knows your exact location. Tactics and psychology. How one tank changed the game. The Firefly didn't just give the Allies a powerful gun. It changed the very tactics of tank warfare. Before its appearance, the standard tactic against Tigers and Panthers was a risky maneuver. Try to flank them, get to the side or rear where the armor was thinner. It was a suicidal cavalry charge with a terrifyingly high price tag. With the arrival of the Firefly, tactics became flexible and deadly. They were included in units of standard Shermans in a ratio of 1:4. The regular Shermans would move forward, engage the enemy, draw their attention, and maneuver. The Firefly would stay on the second line, in a good position, and work as a sniper. Its job was to hit from long range before the enemy could reach it. This was a revolution. The Germans could no longer calmly sit back and methodically pick off the attacking Shermans. Now, from the darkness, from behind a hill, a shell could come that left them no chance. And this brings us to the most important thing, the psychological effect. The Firefly stripped German tankers of their main trump card, their feeling of invincibility. German reports began to show anxious notes. Enemy tanks with long guns opened fire first from ranges at which our shells are no longer effective. Imagine yourself inside a Tiger. You used to be a god of war. Your armor was your fortress. And now your fortress has suddenly become a house of cards. One shot from nowhere, and it's all over. This broke morale. It made them nervous, made them make mistakes. Not a wonder weapon, but a weapon of common sense. By February of 1945, almost half of all Shermans in British and Canadian units were Fireflies. They fought through France, Belgium, Holland, and finished off the Reich on its own soil. The Firefly wasn't a perfect tank. It was cramped. It had vicious recoil. It was the number one target. It blinded its own crews. But it did what needed to be done. It leveled the playing field. It became a symbol not of American might or German technology, but of a typically British approach: pragmatism inventiveness, and the ability to find brilliant solutions in hopeless situations. It didn't surpass the Tiger in armor or maneuverability, but it surpassed it in the main thing: efficiency and relevance to the moment. The story of the Firefly is a story about how victory in war is often won not by fancy wonder weapons, but by simple, reliable, and timely solutions born of desperation and intellect. It was the Firefly that didn't just shine in the night. It set the most fearsome predators of the war ablaze, forcing them to retreat into the shadows they themselves had created. That's all. I hope you found this dive into history as fascinating as I did telling it. This story proves that the truth is always more complex and more interesting than the myths. So what do you think? Was this conversion a real breakthrough, or just a stopgap measure? Maybe you know other examples of such military pragmatism? I want to hear from you. Sound off in the comments with your thoughts and questions. Let's get a discussion going. And if you want to see more deep, intriguing content like this on this channel, subscribe, smash that like button, and hit the bell. I've got plenty more untold stories for you. See you in the next one.